So hi everybody, welcome to my first video. I just wanted to do a bit of an intro video to me. My name is Emma, I'm 39, I am from a place called Newcastle upon Tyne, which is in the north of England. I love animals, I like to draw, I like to collect stuff. Usually related to film or TV. I have an epic X-Files collection in my loft, which I will one day do a video all about. And I have a condition called endometriosis, and I have a condition called Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. So this channel will kind of be dedicated to my kind of struggle as well as my achievement. Will document my life as I proceed with both of these conditions and some of the things that I'm doing to kind of counteract the side effects. So tonight is the eve of my first ever 42-day challenge, which I begin tomorrow. I have signed up a personal trainer, and it's my intention to document this. So I thought the best thing to do was to start a video about me and my journey, and what has brought me to here, and why I am doing this challenge tomorrow. So my journey with endometriosis and polycystic ovarian syndrome started probably about 5 years ago. So when I was a teenager and in my 20s, my nickname was Boney M.
She's crazy like food. What about daddy cool?
Only I was called Boney M because I was so skinny that my bones would stick out in places. So when my mum hugged me, she would kind of call me Boney M. Obviously my name is Emma, makes sense. And then in my kind of mid-20s, I graduated and I noticed that my weight started to go up quite quickly. But I hadn't really changed the way that I was eating or exercising. I was always very active, so I didn't quite understand why. I just thought it was one of those things. So I exercised, I cut out all the rubbish that I was eating, and slowly and surely I lost the weight. And kept it off for a little while, and proceeded through life again. And it would kind of go up and down here and there, but nothing dramatic, and nothing kind of where I thought, my God, I'm really need to do something about this. So about 5 years ago, I started my period as normal, and I'd had generally a steady cycle. I had very, very heavy periods, but they were kind of just, they were kind of on time. And then this period landed one day, and I noticed when I went to the bathroom that the period blood was coming from the wrong place. And essentially looked like it was coming from my bowel. I thought initially it was just like one of those things, and I was imagining it, because it's not something you normally kind of expect to see. So I kind of thought I'll just wait and see what happens, and it slowly kind of vanished as my period ended, and I just went on with life again. It was probably the second, third period that I kind of realized that keeps happening during my period, so this is obviously something to do with my period, and I really needed to talk to somebody. So I went and saw my GP, who referred me to a gynecologist in a local hospital. My gynecologist was actually really good. I know there's a lot of people who struggle with diagnosis, but he was really good, and he said it sounds like endometriosis. And because my mum had the condition, it seemed likely that it was going to be the same for me. So he organised an ultrasound scan and a kind of colonoscopy so that they could look inside the bowel to see what was going on. So I had my colonoscopy first. It was just, not pleasant, but not the worst thing in the world. And I then had an ultrasound scan, and whilst they were in there, they saw that I had what appeared to be some kind of cyst growing in my ovary. It was about 4 centimeters at the time, so they said that it wasn't something to worry about, and that we just kind of see how it went. So all my test results came back fine, and my doctor just said the best thing to do would be to have the Mirena coil, which is a little kind of it's about a little T-shaped coil that kind of goes inside the cervix, and it emits a hormone that kind of stops your periods or slows your periods down, so that it would kind of help to make my periods a lot less heavy. So that's what I did. So about a year later, I woke up one morning and I was feeling dreadful. I genuinely thought I had food poisoning or a tummy bug because I just felt horrific. My stomach was doing knots. I couldn't stop running to the bathroom. I just was in crippling amounts of pain. It was the worst pain I think I've ever felt, up until that point anyway. So I went back to my GP. Initially they were like, well, it probably is something you've eaten, so we'll just kind of give you some pills to help with the pain. But nothing helped, and I was like that for about 2 weeks. I was back and forth to my GP, like, something's not right here. Eventually I was sent back to gynecology, and I had some more tests done. I had another scan done, and it was shown that the cyst that I had increased from 4 centimeters to nearly 8 centimeters in a year. So they said, right, okay, well, the best thing to do is to have this cyst removed, and we'll have a look inside to see how everything is and how everything's going. So I had my first surgery on December 31st. I think it was about 2015. It was New Year's Eve. I was in having surgery, and they took me down. I had a laparoscopic procedure where they kind of put little kind of cameras inside your stomach, and they kind of have a really good look around. They found I had what was called a dermoid cyst, which is basically like I call it a mini-me because it was like a collection of hair and skin and stuff, and it had basically grown inside my ovary. So that was removed, and they had a really good look around my my pelvis, and they couldn't see anything else. There was no endometriosis to be seen apparently, and so I was stitched back up and sent home to recover. I tried to move on as much as I could. I kept getting this horrendous cramping experience that would kind of come maybe every 2-3 months, and it would just like leave me just on the floor crawling around in agony. And as time went on, that kind of 2-3 month period became closer together, so that I was essentially getting the same thing every single month. Every time I had my period, I'd be crippled. So in the meantime, I was having more tests done by my GP. Some of the tests that came back showed that I possibly had some kind of inflammation in my bowel. So she said that it was likely I had something like inflammatory bowel disease or Crohn's disease. And I was sent to see a gastroenterologist. And at the same time, I was sent back to my gynecologist. And I was having lots of different tests done to find out what was going on. And kind of the tests were coming back as, not kind of showing anything serious or nothing that they could kind of put their finger on. So my gynecologist basically said that they would do another surgery, but they didn't expect to find anything, that it was just going to be kind of procedure, just have a quick look around and then I'd come out. So I went in for my my next procedure in the June time, and expected to be in about half an hour. I think I woke up about 3 hours later in the recovery room, so I kind of knew something was a little bit different. I remember looking at the clock and thinking, I've been out a while. I was incredibly sore, a lot more severe than the first surgery, and I was actually asking for morphine this time, which I hadn't done the first time round. I started to have a feeling that something had gone on. The doctor came round to do his rounds, and he told me that they'd found endometriosis, and it was quite extensive. It was on the outside of my large bowel on the left side, and it was on the large bowel on the right side. It was on the ureter, which is the tube that connects the kidneys to the bladder. It was on the posterior part of my uterus. It was on the pouch of Douglas, as what they call, which is the bit that kind of goes under the uterus. And what had happened is all of this scar tissue had kind of clumped together, and my stomach lining was stuck to the kind of the abdomen wall. My ureter was stuck to my stomach, and it was just like this big kind of mess going on in there. So they had to kind of undo all that scar tissue and remove some of the lesions that were there. That was quite a recovery time. It took me quite a while to get over that surgery, and I had some really fun bruises after that one. That was some surgery I went through. And then I had some complications after that one as well, because I had some infections going on, and it took a while to clear up the infection in my wounds. So it wasn't the best surgery, but I did find that I was pain-free for the first time in a while. I went about my business and my life again, but like most endometriosis, it came back within about 6 weeks. I started to get pain again. I decided that I would go on the injection Depo-Provera, which is an injection that essentially kind of turns your periods off. So I had no periods. That was great. That like having no periods is fantastic when you've got very, very heavy, painful periods. But I found that it just didn't help the overall pain of my endometriosis. I just had to kind of persevere, and I was, my GP prescribed codeine and tramadol. I bought a TENS machine. I had a hot water bottle. I used ice packs, ibuprofen, paracetamol, like you name it. I tried it to keep the pain at bay. It was around this kind of time that my weight started to inflate again, but this time it really inflated very, very quickly. I was around about 9.5, 10 stone, and I gained about 4 stone in the course of about 1 year. And I hadn't changed my diet. I hadn't changed my exercise pattern. I cooked everything from fresh. I wasn't kind of eating lots of like processed foods and fats and things like that. So I just couldn't understand why this was happening. My periods started to seem to become a little bit more erratic. My cycle started to become a bit more erratic. So I went for an ultrasound scan, and it was discovered that I had quite enlarged ovaries. The radiographer said that this is usually a sign of polycystic ovaries. I had some blood tests and things like that, and eventually, over time, it was confirmed to be Polycystic Ovarian Syndrome. And what was happening was, in a normal person where they'd eat food, the food would be turned to energy, and you'd kind of burn that energy off. So in PCOS, usually there's like an insulin resistance. So the food that you bring into your body is automatically changed into fat and stored. But it also plays havoc with your metabolism. So you constantly feel hungry, and no matter what you do, you cannot stop the hunger. You're craving all the time, and of course you're just eating crap to try and sustain that kind of that hunger. So that kind of made sense as to why I have gained a lot of weight. So I tried doing the dieting thing and the exercise thing, and I was finding that actually it was really bloody hard. I would lose, I remember I did Slimming World. This was about the 3rd time I'd done it, and I'd done it twice before quite successfully. This was my 3rd time now with PCOS, and I gained, I think I gained 2 pounds in the first week, and then I lost half a pound over the space of 3 weeks, and then I lost another half a pound over the space of 4 weeks. So my motivation levels were just kind of dropping off because I just wasn't seeing the results. My kind of confidence in my body just took a nosedive because I've always been generally a thin person, always been really active. Suddenly here I am, I'm kind of going into the plus size clothing. I've got like this big kind of fat coming around my face. I hated to see myself in the mirror. It really destroyed my confidence. It wasn't long before my pain levels started to really, really increase again. Started to have a lot of really unpleasant symptoms whenever I would have a cycle. I went back in for surgery number 3. It was exactly a year after my 2nd surgery. They went in and they removed a few more kind of lesions of endometriosis, but it hasn't really kind of solved the pain, and it still continues to this day. It's been 2 years since my last surgery. I'm now on the waiting list for surgery number 4 because I'm at the point where it's affecting everything that I do, and I am having times where I cannot even stand up for the pain. So just the other day I was working, I just completed a Zoom call, and out of nowhere I got really, really severe cramping. So my bed's literally just a couple of steps over here. I literally crawled to my bed and I lay on my back just writhing around just to try and get some kind of relief. Now, whilst I've been waiting for my surgery, my doctor prescribed me Zoladex, which is an injection I get every month, and it essentially puts you into like a chemical menopause. My cycles have kind of stopped, my periods have stopped, but I get all the classic menopause symptoms like hot flushes and fatigue and memory loss, which is fun. Not. It has helped my pain considerably, and I've had a good few months where I've been relatively pain-free apart from the odd kind of twinge. But I decided on my last shot that I was not going to have any more because it starts to affect your bones, and obviously there's a heightened risk of other things like breast cancer. So I decided that my last one would be my last, and hopefully my surgery will not be too much longer. I've been trying to work out as much as I can during lockdown. I have lost since December nearly 12 pounds purely on my own, and I've really blood, sweat and tears to get that loss. For me, it's more about kind of setting routine and getting like the full package, both the nutrition and the exercise, into a kind of workable plan that I can kind of keep going even when I feel like shit. So tomorrow I will start my 42-day challenge with a local company called the Fitness Rooms. I am nervous but looking forward to it. I wanted to commit to myself that I was going to do my absolute best to follow this through. And so I thought, what better way than to record the process, to not only help myself, but maybe there's somebody out there in a similar position who could follow along and maybe get some kind of inspiration or motivation from what I'm doing. I know I've looked at so many people on YouTube and Instagram and been so motivated by what they're doing that it's really fueled me to take this challenge on. So hopefully I can have that same effect on someone else. I'm hoping to have at least one video a week on here on the channel, talking about the progress that I'm going through and showing some of the stuff that I'm doing. And then hopefully, we can check in 6 weeks' time and see some form of difference. I really hope so, because I am really getting desperate now to drop this weight, because my ankles cannot cope with it anymore. So I hope you like that. Obviously, if you leave any comments in the box below, and I'll respond as much as I can. Remember to follow me and turn on notifications so when I do release a video you can get notified. So yes, I'll see you soon. Wish me luck. Bye.